gentlemen, welcome to Anime Watch Club, a bi-weekly group discussion and review where the hosts of the What Do You Say Anime podcast nominate and vote on shows either we haven't seen or shows that hopefully lead to a great discussion. On today's episode, the We Swear It's Just a Rash and Nothing More gentlemen of the What Do You Say Anime podcast will be reviewing the 2023 anime Ooku. Let's meet today's Discord concubines. First up, unlike Ooku, no cats were harmed in the making of this podcast. We got Kat. Kat, how's it going?
I am doing great. How are you guys doing today?
I'm exhausted. Just got back from Vegas, but doing fantastic. Glad to have you here. Next up, he's the Kohai to Oh Man, but this time in the inner chambers, he went as Oh Brother. We got JJ. How art thou?
I'm doing pretty well. Also, really tired. Happy to be back in a place where it doesn't feel like you're literally just stepping into an open oven, more or less, every time you go outside. But I had a good time in Vegas.
Next up, he gets red face pox whenever he talks to girls. We got Johnny. Johnny, how's it going?
Well, it's a good thing I never talked to them, huh? So that means that I'll never die.
That's why your skin's perfect, bro. Next up, our first moderator of the night. He claims his hairstyle is reminiscent of this time frame, but we all know it's just male pattern balding. We got Miles. Miles, how's it going?
It's going good.
Got him. Let's
well,
go.
That was as flat as your hairline.
I know, but I'm making it so the audio only listeners think you're bald.
Why did you give me so bad?
Got his ass.
You're
Miles is stunned.
You're roasting him about his hairline when you know.
What? I don't have a receding hairline. My hair's perfect.
You look like Mr. Potato Head.
Pete also has perfectly fine hair.
Yeah, my hair's great. But Miles,
maybe even better than mine. But mine, I wouldn't necessarily say it was balding. I did.
Well, you look good. I like what you got going on right now.
Thanks. Yeah, I finally got a haircut. I needed it.
Fresh
anyways, we spent too much time on me. Go ahead, Pete.
All right. And Pat.
Yeah, I like it. I don't get roasted, so it's kind of nice having this intro. It's growing on me, let's say. Unlike the bumps that are growing on Johnny or whoever else it was earlier. Yeah, bada bing, bada boom. There we go. Let's talk about Ooku, the Inner Chambers, the show that we picked that we narrowed down to, let's say, after nominating shows that we thought Pete would like because it was Pete Week, or it is Pete Week, I suppose. We're celebrating Pete Week right now. And yeah, this show produced by Netflix and done by Studio Dean. It's based on a manga. It's also had a TV show or a movie, more specifically, made like live action made about it as well. And it just recently got dropped this past June. So it was a very, very recent show as well in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, let's do our first impressions. I'd say this show is a 10-episode thing with like a movie for the first episode. So why don't we just do your first impressions based off the movie and maybe the second episode just because there's a pretty significant change in tone or structure maybe. Miles, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I really liked the movie that we watched at the beginning of this that was also attached to a TV show. It's interesting because that's like a relatively complete story. There's like a little love story. It introduces you to the concepts, and then you go back in time to sort of learn about how these things happened. Like I don't know, I definitely liked that part. The rest of it was a bit hit or miss for me. As for if I would recommend this or not, I would say yes with some caveats. If you don't like some like it's dry at parts. There's like a lot of political stuff going on. There's a lot of historical references and stuff. I know people that get bored with like Gundam, for example, because of all of the different like factions and the talking and all the names and all of that. And so if that's like not your jam, this also probably won't be your jam. Like, this is my thought. But I think that if the tags sound interesting to you, give it a go.
There you go. All right. Kat, what about you?
Like first impressions, it was like the movie itself was really, really good. It was really, really well done, and I, aside from not realizing it was a movie until after work, it was really It's set up for the rest of the show very well. It was basically setting himself up for a slam dunk, and although it felt like it did fumble a little bit later on in the show, we can get into that a little bit later. But would I recommend it? I would, if you aren't too squeamish about a lot of sexual like themes, because it is very very sexual and can be a little bit much for. I can see it being a little bit much for some people.
Yeah,
Um,
and more specifically, like sexual assault, right? Like that
yes,
is happens very frequently and suddenly in this show. Imagine throughout our conversation we'll be talking about it as well. So if you are sensitive to that, just be warned. I guess there's
sexual
your
assault and
warning.
prostitution as
uh,
well.
Yeah, well, your warnings that you'd expect a TV show in 2023 to have at the beginning of them, but it also doesn't have that in this show. So keep that in mind as you go into it. But yeah, sweet. Thank you, Kat. All right, Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, again, funny enough, like Cat, I was starting to watch this, didn't even realize the first episode was a movie. So that was a surprise for me. But yeah, honestly, it's like part of me feels like you could just watch the movie or like the rest of the series like on their own, and it would be like a fine experience. It's weird for me because it's like you could have put the episode one of this show either at the start of the show or at the end, and I feel like it would have been almost the exact same. In a sense, it almost felt like it was unnecessary, and it's like a side story to a story. There's like two stories in this anime. And in terms of what I recommended, it's not a show for everyone. Honestly, it's a lot of dialogue, it's a lot of politics and like inner struggles and like dialogue like over and over. So it's really like it's not an action kind of show at all. So honestly, I don't know. I probably wouldn't recommend this to like just some random person that just happens to like anime. I would say like this is like if you're into like dramas, this might be something you're interested in. But if you're like an anime fan, it's probably not the best thing for you.
Yeah, like your average person. That makes sense. All right, Jay, what about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed like I enjoy the core concept of the show because just as a person, I really enjoy like period pieces and stuff like that. Like everybody who listens to the pod knows I'm a big like Golden Kamuy fan, Vinland Saga, that sort of thing. So this kind of like hits some of the same notes for me. Obviously, it's not quite as actiony as those two are at points. This is not a show that I would recommend to anybody who needs like amazing animation or sequences or anything to enjoy an anime because it is not going to be in there for you. But like I think we're like this does really well, especially at the beginning, is like the way that it interweaves the relationships between the characters and how their culture and what is going on in the world at the time is affecting them is very interesting and like masterfully crafted, honestly. I think in terms of character work, this is like very excellent. Even the side characters are really well developed. Like there are characters like Honor Kasuga who like you meet her and you think that she's just like some like scheming Jafar type vizier or whatever, and it's just like nah, she actually like has her reasons why she cares about the Tokugawa clan and like the what's going on in the world and everything. So I think that if you're somebody who's focused on like character drama or liking like period pieces and whatnot, then you should check this out. One thing that I want to mention that I don't think anybody else brought up was that this show kind of expects you to have like a basic understanding of the Edo period. So to an American audience who's not taught that in school for the most part, maybe some people got taught it. I certainly did it. There's a lot of context that is missing for you. So I would kind of recommend maybe like watching a 10-minute YouTube video or something about it beforehand so you can get the most out of it because I was certainly kind of confused at points and had to go like do my own research to fill in the gaps in my opinion.
That makes sense. I agree with that. It was I'm more familiar with the eras following the Edo period, so I definitely maybe I had a little bit of an advantage. I loved reading about the random stuff that came up because I don't know, I like history. Yeah, it's probably shocking, right? So yeah, sweet. Pete, what about you?
Yeah, I think I might be the highest on Ooku of this group. For the first episode to me was from this year, maybe my favorite first episode outside of Oshinoko episode 1. That's how highly I regarded the first episode. It is a lot of dialogue, but the entire time I was just entranced by what they were saying. I think that's a testament of how good the writing is in the show. That at no point was I really ever bored or not intrigued to see what was going on next in the show. And I think what the show did really well in the first episode was kind of establish the themes and messaging that they're going for with this 8 shogunate and kind of reverting it back into the fourth, the third in episode 2. I really like that Star Wars style of storytelling where we're getting episode 4 first. Like, what? Hold on. And then I think they kind of made sense of why they introduced it that way and kind of told us the backstory of it past episode 1. To me, if you're a fan of like what I think about anime, and since this is Pete Week, I think this is a Pete show. It checked every box for me. I loved it. There were some production values that were not to the standard that I was expecting, but other than that, that's really much it, man. The first episode really hit for me, and I would recommend it to anybody who's a fan of drama, historical stuff. Also, if you hate just when things don't get answered, I feel like Ooku answers a lot of the questions that get presented, and I'm a huge fan of that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to all my Pete fans out there.
You got this over the episode 1 of Zom 100?
Yes.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Kind of unfair because it's an hour and a half, but fair.
Well, it could have been bad. Could have been a bad hour and a half.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. And yeah, I'll wrap up. I'm a big fan of the historical drama aspects of the show. So if you're into historical dramas, I would highly recommend it. I think the time period that it's studying is a really interesting time period, especially with the, I guess, creative freedom that they approach it as well, being the fact that they have to find a way to just like write out like I don't know, was it 3/4 of the men in the show or 7/8 of the men or 4/5 of the men at different points? Like, I think it was really, really cool. I also agree with pretty much everyone else's complaints so far in the show too, where yeah, the production at random times like took me out of the show. It is very dialogue heavy. I was able to enjoy the writing enough to not be bothered by that. Uh, in particular, especially in that first episode. But I am on the side of finding it frustrating that the first episode's presented to us, and then from there it is really never touched on again, and like throughout the rest of what we've seen. And of course, it's because we're only seeing the first quarter of the full story from the manga, but that also, I know that's what's put in front of us is what we can judge. So I would not recommend this, like Johnny said, to just general anime fans, but I would recommend this to people who like historical dramas. Let's, I guess, open the floor for discussion. I think a big talking point for us that we've already all brought up is the director, I guess, directorial decision to have the first episode present us the modern or current time, and then for the next 9 episodes, not even like there is one character in the next 9 episodes who is shown in the first episode, and they are unrecognizable, and you'd only know who they are based off of like 2 sentences in episode 9 or 10. I can't remember which one it was. How do we feel about this decision? Because I was personally frustrated that by the end of the show, it didn't bring us back to at least some time
Yeah.
specific
So
thing.
really quickly before we talk about this, I just want to, because I don't think we've ever established the setting here. So we've said that it's historical a lot, but it's important to note that it's an alternative history, where there was a disease called the red-faced smallpox that eliminated some large percent of the male population. So the backdrop to this is that women are now in charge of like industry and families, and you have a female shogun, and you actually did in this point in history anyway, but it's like more lineage y. And so we will go from there. Pete, I think you wanted to go first on Pat's topic.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have an issue with it like at all, because just like if we got like a season 2, it would just continue the story. I think it's just sort of like how it ended it's left off where we don't get the answers that we did in the first episode, but I think it's just because of lack of content. It's not like the content's just not out there, it's just not animated. And I do that a lot for stories that, especially in anime, that season 2 win. It's like it's not the fault of the story that the production doesn't get a second season or something along those lines. I try to just face it for like what we were presented and how it was presented in that manner. And in case we got like a second season, then it would be addressed going further. But yeah, it's just like the Star Wars thing, where it's just like we got episode 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3. This is Shogun 8, and then we get into Shogun 3, and at the end of it, leading into Shogun 4, which then I'm assuming would lead up eventually back to Shogun 8. So no issues with me with how the directing was for the style of story, because I do think you kind of see how the 8th Shogun kind of changed. There's like one scene where like in the first episode where the 8th Shogun's like, you don't have to kill yourself. Like, this isn't like a practice we need to do anymore. And it's like, oh yeah, like why are we doing this practice? And I like that it was addressed then. And then we kind of get going back to see how that type of thinking started, because the 3rd Shogun sort of was doing some changes of like tradition and what their society is used to. And I really liked how we can see that progress from Shogun 3 to Shogun 8.
Personally, I wasn't really too bothered by the questions that weren't answered in the first episode either, mainly because the first episode was meant to be a backdrop for the rest of the show, like I think Pete referenced. And one of the things about it is like I kind of prefer when like during the first episode we only start to piece together some of those questions that need to be answered throughout the show. And if and I haven't read the manga because this is based on a manga, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like the first episode is like, I mean, the first season as a whole is meant to like kind of answer the questions of what's going on. And it seems like there's going to be a lot more questions that are going to be answered, either going from the modern era forward, either like by this being like a preface for the rest of the show, and how like the countries and like how opening borders and like dealing with like other powers go, or either working with trying to figure out what other customs are. And either way, I'm very intrigued. So I don't have a problem with where it's going. My only problem was like with a little bit of the visuals. It was a little bit choppy at times, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily. I wish they had done more. Normally, when you have someone going back like that, and like you have a character who is reading a history, and I think almost every other example of that I've ever seen, because it's not exactly like Star Wars, right? Because
Because Star
this,
Wars was presented 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, so it's not the
well,
same.
Well,
well,
You're going,
it's in the sense where we're looking ahead is the kind of the point I'm making, and
yeah,
then
but like
going back.
it would be like if Star Wars started with, you know,
Sure, you get what I'm
what
saying, though.
yeah, but it's important to my point, I guess, right?
Okay.
No one's looking back in Star Wars. We just start in the middle, and then later we go back. Someone is looking back in Oku, right? Like someone is reading through these histories. It's like how the ED is set up and everything to like present it like that. And I would have liked more current day commentary on this, like to see those characters and then see them react to like why these practices happened and their opinions on that and everything,
that,
because that is how it is set up. Where the current shogun, the 8th shogun, is supposed to be learning these things, and it feels more like a set piece or something. I don't know. It doesn't. They don't utilize that, and I would like. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say I know what you're trying to say, because it's what I was gonna counter Pete with, was that, yeah, that they they use the vessel of the 8th shogun, asking, the old man at the end, to tell the story, and he tells the story, but then we don't really hear the 8th shogun's reaction at all to anything that's happened so far from episodes 2 through 10. And that's where, and again, I get what you're saying, like, oh, it's not, well, maybe in the manga it didn't have that, or it's not the story's fault that it's not done, but they could have at least done something with that. That would have made like tied it more together with the current or with the initial story or what we initially saw. They could have, like Miles was trying, like kind of saying, was like pull it back out and have the eighth shogun go, so why did they do this?
Oh, I see what you're
And then
saying.
have the old man answer it as parts of the episodes, or even at the, again, like just the fact that we got to the end of episode 10 and not even once did it reflect back to the modern times. I kept waiting for it to do that eventually. And it's like, why? What was the point of the first episode if you're not going to show, or and the establishing those characters, if you're not going to at least like show why you're showing us the rest of this, if that makes sense? Because
Yeah,
like
I guess I was viewing it as like we're seeing the stories that are being written. It's kind of like how I interpret it. That like I didn't need the reflection of the eighth shogunate. I'm seeing how we got to this point. But like I definitely see where you're coming from. Where like you'll pull back and let's see like where we're at now when we have 4 generations of shogun written down and stuff.
which would have been great if they started with episodes 2 through 8 10 and then had episode 1 be like the finale. Then none of this complaint would exist.
Well,
So there has to be a reason to put this first, other than the fact that it's the most, in my opinion at least, the most interesting, like let's say 3 episode segment that they did, like in terms of like just runtime, right? Like that locks you in, it sucks you in, and that's, in hindsight, that's probably why the live action movie that came out like 10 years ago only adapts that part of the story, the movie, the episode 1, because that's enough to like make people want to watch it and like have it. And so like I bet that that's the reasoning behind it. But also like, yeah, if they did 2 through 10 and then did 1 afterwards, then we wouldn't really have those questions, because then it would be more of a, oh, okay, like we were watching things unfold
Sure.
rather than being told what happened. Johnny, I know you had something to say, unless Miles wanted to.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, so like you guys are talking about this, and like it made me think about like a movie that I watched recently. So, which is I recently went and watched Oppenheimer, which amazing movie by the way. And I'm not gonna go into spoilers, but I think like the way that Oppenheimer presented its story is something that this show could have done. So like in Oppenheimer, again, I'm not gonna go into spoilers, but it's just the way that it's structured. So it's like there's 2 timelines kind of like happening like at the same time. So it's like one is before the atomic bomb and one is after. So then you kind of like get. I feel like this show could have done that, where it's like you see the events that happen here, and then it jumps forward to see like what the consequences of that were. And now I feel like if the show did that, it would have made it like easier to see like what the consequences of this action were. So for example, like the rule where the first person to sleep with the shogun has to be executed. You could have like, and I know like in Oppenheimer it's a bit different because it's a 3 hour long movie, where here's a 1 hour long movie and like 9 episodes. But I feel like if they presented it in that way, it could have been easier for people to connect the first episode with the rest. Because again, like I said, I feel like they were very disconnected. If to the point where like they're almost completely different. Where if you only watched one or the other, you wouldn't really feel a difference.
I would argue that I think the show was structured well to answer both those questions if you watch the movie first and then throughout the show. Yes, it will be. Yes, I can see where one is going to be easier than the other, but I feel like either way, I feel like this show did a great job at just kind of like referencing those moments by making those moments bigger than the rest, like bigger than the rest of the than parts of the episode, where instead of it like juxtaposing the past to the future, it has these moments where it's kind of like making these things uh the big highlight of an episode, you know what I mean? Because it makes it that much more impactful during the show without having to go back to the future.
But I feel like it would be more impactful if you saw, again, it's like if you connected the past with the future. Because the thing is, again, my problem with it is that it's this story is 2 stories basically. There's very little throughout the show that like reminds you of the fact that, hey, by the way, this is a flashback. you like again, like Pat said, I think his problem is that like it never goes into the future. So like I have an example like from my previous like when I was comparing this to Oppenheimer, where it's like I don't know if I should. I'm kind of going to spoilers here,
No
but there's like a
spoilers.
Yeah, don't spoil it. The movie just
okay,
came out.
okay. It is. It's based off reality, but I'm not gonna spoil it. But like, there's a reason why you are looking back into his past because at this point in the story, that is important. So I feel like here is like you could be like in the present, there's like this rule that's explained, and you're like, why is it like this? And then you go back into the past to see what it was like in that timeline, so that it makes sense, and then therefore like those actions have impact because you see the effects of like the past on the future, which I don't
Well,
think is really seen here.
We see it in the
except for
first
the first
episode.
episode. Yeah, but
Yeah.
again, that's my point. It's
Yeah, it
only
could
the
have.
first episode, and
Yeah,
it doesn't connect at all.
they could have. I agree, John. Like I think that I mean, you do that, right? You see that the third shogun is raped, and like that's how they have that like secret swain position where like the person who defiles the shogun is like put to death or whatever. So like you see the origination of these things, but I think there's opportunity to do more interesting intercuts instead of just like either cutting back or taking that first episode and like playing parallel scenes before or after the corresponding scene in the past. I just think there's more interesting things you could do. Not to say, Pete, that I think that it's not good, because I do. I just think it could be done
I think it's just like
better.
a preference thing, isn't it? It's like they're just trying to tell the story in a different way than what we're maybe used to in Western media or something, where it's reflected on.
I don't necessarily know if it's only Western media. It's again the only example of media I can think of that doesn't cut back. But
Titanic.
Titanic cuts back.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've only
It
seen it
does.
like once. I thought like it was just the start, and then that's
no. At the end of the movie, she's like, "And I never loved your dad," and then it ends.
But it was just the start at the end, right?
We
No,
get
it definitely cuts back like at least once or
a
twice.
It
couple of
does.
times.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do think that there are interesting parallels between the two, as you mentioned, Pete. I just sort of wish they highlighted it more.
Sure.
Is all.
Mhm.
Because I probably missed some.
Would like this solve like would it say we got season 4 where it just focused on Shogun 8? Would like that solve any of the issues, or is it just like how they did it in the beginning?
I don't think that's necessary. Again, it's just have it intertwine more. Just see
Ye-
the impacts of the past on the future.
They do mention that, like, narration wise, they do say like this
Very
led to
briefly,
this, but like it could have been done a little bit more explicitly, because I remember they say like, yeah, Ari Koto acting like this led to the Ooku becoming a fucking like waste of money, like nuisance and all that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. You were. I was gonna say, like, alternatively, if you just like don't show her, like, being like, I guess I'm gonna read this book now, at the end of episode 1, and just like have a narration that's like, and now we will go back and like learn how all of this happened. Like that solves the problem for me as well, because then I don't have the expectation that like I'm not imagining the Eighth Shogun reading this book and expecting her commentary on it. Which I was based on how the show was presented. So I don't think it's like inherently a problem, but they sort of like set my expectations up a bit. I think it didn't fulfill that, so it was a little Last Jedi.
Cool.
We start with Star Wars, we end with Star Wars. Every story ever is Star Wars, right? Like it all comes back to it.
Except for Star Wars. Star Wars is The Lion King. I have no idea if that's true or not.
And the Lion King is Hamlet.
Yes.
I guess we can talk about like the whole premise of the show, which we haven't really talked about yet. But it's like, do we think that like it does an accurate job of like portraying what would happen if 90% of men actually just disappeared?
I don't know if it's accurate, but it was interesting.
I was gonna.
I don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
you think that like that's what would have happened. Like, did it make sense?
That's much
Sure.
better way to phrase it. It's like, believe it or not, I don't think any of us have the correct answer to this because there is no correct answer. But,
I mean, to be fair, being from an Asian household, I know what it's like when one female owns the entire house. So you know.
Yeah.
Pete, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I thought there's a lot that goes into the story, but the one that like really stuck out to me kind of was how later, I think it was like, I want to say like 25 years since like patient 0 or whatever of the red face pox happened, and society is getting more accustomed to women taking on men's role, that we see like a technological advance in equipment because the women aren't as strong and as the men in like the field, so they adapt by creating better technology that was easier for them. Than you said with like the grain puller. I'm just like, that's great. Like innovation comes from a problem at hand. It was fun to see like that addressed in that little snippet, and throughout the show, like I thought how they handled just like the themes and like what they were trying to message in this entire story was so well done. Like every question that I had during the show was answered either in like that episode or the following episode.
I actually really like, responding to Johnny's point, not Pete's. I thought that the mangaka did a really good job. Well, I'm using mangaka because it's the source material. I think that it was really well researched, and that she did a pretty good job of showing like what would happen if these influential, political people were replaced by women, like Shogun and whatnot. I think that it was very well researched, and like the fact that the characters are able to interact in such a genuine way and keep to like I said, cultural norms that I mentioned earlier at the same time. Like I think it's just really a really well done period piece, and you don't always get that in anime, I feel like, or manga in general. Like, I don't know. I think that, yeah. To answer Johnny's question succinctly, yes, I think that it was done pretty well for the premise, like as much as we can kind of say,
No. I like the part where it's like it tries to like explain real, like for example, it's like, so like during this era, Japan went into like isolation from the outside world, and I like how like they tie that in because of the fact that there were so few men that Japan wouldn't be able to defend itself in a war. So their solution was to just disconnect entirely from the rest of the world, so
Yeah.
that nobody knows that like all the men in Japan were dead. I thought that was a really cool thing that they did.
Yeah. Personally, I thought it was also really well done because of the emphasis on royalty at the time. Being that the hot commodity of the time was men, and having that many men dressed in silk clothing, dressed in things that were not anywhere near like common. It was really interesting to see that because, royalty, if you have the money, if you have the power, you have the ability to get all of these things. And in order to like go from the Ooku of woman for one man to the Ooku of one woman for several, I mean, one for several men for one woman, it's very interesting to me. And also seeing the just the homosexuality that ends up happening throughout the show, part like I felt like that was really well done as well because in the prison system, essentially, like a lot of men end up having like situational homosexuality because they're pent up, and they're like, it's really sexual talk, just leaving it there, but like that happens a lot. And to have that put into a show like this where there's so many things going on adds a sense of reality that I was refreshed to see, although not great, don't get me wrong, not good at all. Like, it's still just very interesting to me to see that that was implemented into the show. So I think it was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, it is like it is a sad thing that happens, but it's like if you stick like a couple hundred dudes inside of like a prison where they literally only have one woman where like they're allowed to like, have sex with, and then like 99.99% of them will never be able to do that. It's like
Yeah.
it's just is gonna happen. It's just
For clarification, because I don't know if this detail is made, the situational homosexuality is not the tragic thing. There was a lot of sexual coercion
No,
involved
yeah,
with
Yes,
no,
that.
that
that
like
was
that's what
that
I
was
meant. It's
Y-
like
yeah.
yes,
That's
no,
what
I
I
knew,
meant.
I knew that's what you guys meant. I just can't
But
remember if it was
for
said or not,
Jay,
so I
No,
wanted to
that's
make sure that that was clear.
well,
Um,
I mean, it's also a reference towards like just being in that situation where you just can't get out. Like specifically, like because like when they go in, it's basically just a prison
It is a
sentence. Because
prison,
once you,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you're just
They-
there, like you get things, you have money, but essentially it's a prison sentence because you're sending money back to your family just to be able to do that. And
allegedly too, because you can't tell if it's actually
exactly,
happening. It's you
um,
can believe it all you want, but you know who knows? they
the
they
one
acknowledge it a lot. It's great.
the one person that was that we could see that might have even been able to was the first dude that we meet in the movie. And even then he doesn't go back to his family, he goes back to his childhood friend and he goes to marry her. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of up for debate, honestly. And I feel like that adds a little bit adds even more reality into the show, but it's just it feels that much worse. A little bit like it's good, but in like making you feel bad, you know?
I think the only thing I didn't, or and of course this might happen later on in the show. I agree with everyone else so far. I thought that they did a pretty accurate job of uh showing what would happen or what we can only estimate would happen. I'm just surprised that when and again let's say the majority, the 80 to 90%, if not more, of the men think that they are serving a male shogun still. I'm surprised that they didn't have at least one of them stand up and revolt when it was revealed to them that there was a female shogun. Just because I don't know, society has shown that that's men don't like being subservient to women, and like if to not have someone do that, and of course that could happen later on in the show. It could happen once it becomes more public knowledge
Well,
that the women are in charge. I'm just surprised that it wasn't at least shown or acknowledged, just because a lot of men would not. Men can't even handle the idea of having a female president. It's a similar situation, I would think, especially when men have so much more power, being that they're all samurai or they're all trained physically to be able to be like empowering. But yeah, like the men are just trained to be the warriors, and more now or more back then than they are now are in the position of power, just physically, and because there's no gun to defend yourself. Yeah, I guess if that makes sense. But Jay, go ahead.
yeah, I think that while I get what you mean, you also have to remember where specifically all the men in the Uku are
Hmm.
from. They're like nobles and stuff like that who have been raised with like this sense of purpose for the society that they're in. Like this is like the highest honor you could have for yourself and your family. Like if you were to revolt against that, it wouldn't like I mean we even mentioned like the fact that you're like you don't know your family is are pawns basically to them to for you to do what they want. Like I don't know, like it's just what are you going to do? It's not like you revolting is going to help anything. It's only going to get you killed or your family killed or whoever. Especially when you have Kasuga running around just having everybody bopped for whatever reason.
Yeah.
also by this time, like the majority of like the governors and stuff were women too. Like they had all those people come in. I feel like it'd be really weird to revolt. Like the ship has sailed by the time it's revealed to people.
I think they kind of said though that only some of the men got like very few of the men out of let's say the 200 concubines, right? They kind of like established that out of those 200, 10 of them get to have I don't know, get to see who the emperor is, even like through the veil, right? 10 of
Shogun.
them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry,
Shogun.
Shogun, pardon me,
Right.
get to interact with the outside world, even at all, right? Like, and so I agree. Like, what you're saying is a fair point that they're not they're trained to like think in their family's honor or whatever, or in their nobility, right? That it's an honor to do this. It's an honor to be recognized by the shogun. They surely one of them or somebody would have reacted like I don't care that all the men are leaving. We are, yeah, like what or dying, I should say. Like the men that there are no men left. What the hell? I'm not serving under a woman. Like again, I feel like that would have been something that to me would have been a realistic thing to have happened, which is why I was surprised that they didn't even just have one guy stand up and be like, "What the hell is going on here? Why, who this person's in charge?" And they do a great job of showing how they're all unified under the shogun, right in that scene, right where it's revealed that she
I
commands authority and she commands charge, and everyone is just like, oh well, okay, cool, yeah, I mean she's been leading us this whole time anyways. It's just the fact that they were being misled that whole time to believe they were still following a man, to then have that rug pulled. I would think someone would have reacted. That's my
Well,
thought.
we see them
I think
reacting surprised. They just don't. They're not going to stand up and like revolt or whatever because like you'll just get murdered.
Yeah.
Like that's all there is to it.
All that
Like
you said is
it's
temporary.
it's like just as yeah. Like if you're just disrespecting the shogun, like no matter what, you're going to get fucking killed. So like it's like okay, whatever. It's like learning that like the previous shogun was a homosexual. Like well, they're probably just like whatever. Like not much I can do about it. Like me not wanting to have sex with him is not going to change anything. He's just gonna fucking have me killed if I don't do it. So fuck it, we ball, and fuck it, we ball.
the other thing is that in that situation, like, what are you gonna do? Just stand up just because oh, we're men and we're like, I
I
get
am
that.
Spartacus. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like
yeah, I
seriously.
get that.
I'm not
I
kidding though. Like seriously, why wouldn't they do
I
that?
I I get that that is what happens, but like in this situation, like you've got all of these people just kind of bearing down at you. And even if you like the moment that you stand up and like say something, you're getting your head cut off. And like we see that with the monk. The only reason that the monk is probably still alive is because the shogun took a liking to her. And the monk was probably the most strong-willed of all of the people there. And then we see that at the beginning of like the actual like flashback, like episode 1, episode 2, we see these like strong samurai basically looking down on on Ari
Arikoto.
God, huh?
Arikoto.
Ari Koto. I want to say Ari Ferretta, but like Ari Koto, you see Ari Koto like just basically like standing up, and while the others are just kind of like, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? Like, why is this effeminate man just like standing up to this shogun with no problem? The other thing is that when it comes to like the ones who are below, I think the pages, like they are also not like it's not that they don't know that the shogun's a female. Like it seems like those who are even remotely connected to like the higher men, and I get that's not everybody, but like a lot of them are like understand that the shogunate's a woman, and a lot of these times like the pages were like weaker than the rest because they were just basically uh maids essentially, instead of like samurai, which the ones that are above were supposed to be. You know what I mean?
I gotta disagree with
Like,
you just a little bit, Kat. First, Arikoto was forced to be in the Ooku. He didn't
oh
want
yeah,
to be there. Also, he he made his like whatever they're called kimonos to appeal to the shogunate, not to stand up to them. Like the whole point of his design was it's simple because he realized that's well at the time I don't think he knew it was a girl, but like he realized like that was what that the shogunate was looking for in like style, and that's kind of like how he focused his kimono. So I think it's the opposite of like standing up to him. Um, but I think we see at the end with like why people didn't rise up. The men who are really good at combat get paid a fuck ton of money. So why would they revolt when they're super rich? Like that was like the whole point is like forcing the young people to be prostitutes essentially, and the old ones to be quote security guards, more like prison guards. But like that was like I wouldn't stand up to her if she was writing me a blank check.
Yeah, that's very true too. That at the end of the day, they are, which I thought This is where I think I can understand, and this is a whole different thing that happened in another server when we were talking about this show. But people were seeing the show and the way things ended up essentially as misogynistic, and like it's still a man's point of view on how the world would end up. I think that this show is, if anything, the opposite, because it shows the fact that, like, even with the men ending up being so rare, and in this case lower class citizens compared to the female shogun, there's still that innate value to them in this. And I won't say that. I don't know, because I'm dancing on eggshells here. I think with like this conversation, because it's a tough conversation to have, though. Like because it is a very misogynistic perspective, right? To have that women are only uh worth existing to bear a child, right? That is a very common perspective, and
That
then to
doesn't
see that
happen in the show, though. That's
it's
like,
kind of flipped, though, is my point, though. Like,
yes, it's supposed to highlight the misogyny that happens IRL, right? Like that's
right.
what it's doing. So
That's what and that's why
yeah,
I'm like, I perceive it that way, and I think most people would, but like so that's
If
where
you
I don't know,
consume the
again,
content, yeah.
yeah, if you actually
If
watch
you
the show.
watch the show, it's like start from the first episode.
Yeah, but even the first episode
well, yeah,
acknowledges
even
that in the first 20 minutes. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, to me, I get it, because like you sit there and you say, wow, the first thing the show does is kill off 4 out of every 5 men. What happens to the final man that's alive in those groups? He becomes a fucking player who gets to sleep with everybody, be rich, be valuable, and the most important part of society. And it's like, it's not because it's glorifying that, it's because it's what would it have to happen. It's like just like supply and demand, so to speak, right? And they acknowledge that in the show, how awful that is, and how that's again, if that didn't happen, then what would the show
yeah.
wouldn't be accurate, I guess. And I'm sorry, Johnny, I didn't mean to divulge from your.
Yeah.
I think you had a point to make
Well,
in
I
response to
was
Pete.
gonna talk to your original point about why they didn't betray him. So like they said this in the show. Number one, most of the people that would have resisted against the shogunate are dead
That's true.
because of the plague. Second, the shogunate, like Kasuga, made it clear that like every single person who was like in the council was like deeply indebted to her, so there was no way any of them would betray her.
Mhm.
So then, like, the only men that are powerful left are all loyal to Kasuga. Are they really going to betray the shogunate, who they knew was a girl this whole time? So the point is, like, everybody who didn't know the shogun was a woman, like, they realistically didn't matter because there was no way that any of them had enough power to to rebel. And also, I like, again, like she said, like she made it very clear, like this is a very temporary thing. I'm only shogun because of the situation we are in, and once we have a male heir, we will go back to normal.
Mm.
So like in that situation, there really isn't much room for betrayal, in my opinion.
You know, Lady Kasuga, like all of these people are real people. I'm like sort of just learning this right now. She has a fate servant named after her.
Oh,
Oh, of course
lit.
she does.
That's how you know she's a real important part of
That's how you know
history.
she's a real person.
Yeah.
It's because she has a fate servant named after her.
Speaking
What
of
rarity-
Lady
what rarity
Kasuga,
is she?
though, since this is a character drama, I kind of wanted to touch on this before we run out of time. A lot of characters got a lot of screen time to kind of develop, and you could form your own opinion. And just wondering, I guess, what are you guys' thoughts on like your favorite characters?
Oh, I can start off by saying fuck Gyoke. Fuck him for killing Waka Murasaki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He deserved to get fucked up for that shit. I do
Nothing
not
ever
forgive-
happened to him.
No,
He was
he
fine.
literally
He died of
lit-
red
only-
pox.
No,
Yeah,
that
no,
was the
he
No,
that was the
didn't.
paralyzed
that was
one.
the paralyzed guy. He was
Oh, that's
fine.
right.
Gyoke
The guy
was
that
just
like jumped up and
he just
paralyzed his body.
he was just fine. Like nothing happened to him at all. He started growing. He got good with the sword. Like, bro, yeah, whatever, man. But
Yeah.
overall, favorite characters. Arikoto is good. I think that it's interesting to see like his savior complex and how much that affects literally every single interaction he has with anybody. Kasuga was great, just like for how fucking conniving and like on top of everything she was. She really was like the like little finger of the whole situation, like was just like worming around everything. Like mad respect for her. And then like I really enjoyed the Shogun. Like both the Shoguns that we saw. Like I thought that they were both really well developed characters. Even the like eighth one with how little time we got with her compared to the what third? Yeah, third. So yeah, those are probably my top two, I would say, or three.
I agree. I think that they did a really good job fleshing out the third in the hour and a half that they had, right? Like they showed what her mindset was, that she was cunning, that she was understood that what her situation was unlike any of the other shoguns who had come before as well, right? Being technically not part of the bloodline, right? Or I guess like an extension of it, right? Because she comes in as a replacement for the one who passed away, the seventh, who was a child when they passed away. Like I thought that was I don't know. They showed that she was ready to get right into things, and they also showed that her concubine, or I guess is that what? Again, there's so many goddamn words used in this show. Her first mate, I guess, for a lack of my better vocabulary. She's also very cunning and intelligent, and capable of manipulating the people that are around her. I thought that was really well done. But sorry, I know
Who's your
I,
favorite character?
ah, who's my favorite character? That's a good question. The guy who jumped up and paralyzed the paralyzed guy. Did that bother anyone else just randomly?
Yeah, it
Like
was dumb.
Yes,
Yeah, that was
it was so
absolutely.
so
dumb.
stupid.
Yeah.
I
Like
wonder if that happened in real life. I'm gonna.
Man did a poggers in real life and died.
yeah. He fell like 4 feet to, or not even like probably like 2 feet. Which of course, again, I get it. Freak out injuries happen, especially back then, right? But
Well, I mean, that's the same way that
He's like
Stephen Hawking got paralyzed
19.
as well, though. So
yeah, maybe again. That I guess that's my point. Is that I just was like, and it stood out in the show because everything else that seemed to happen felt believable, and then it's just like, oh yeah, this guy jumped in the air celebrating and fucking surprise, he's paralyzed, and it was just like, Jesus Christ, guys,
Killing
like what are
shit.
we doing here?
I just.
Uh
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
have
go
to
ahead.
see if that happened because, like, to me, that was like maybe like one of those truth is stranger than fiction sort of thing. And since like
Yes.
all of these people are just people, apparently, and maybe not. Like, I don't know anything about this period of history. After I've watched 11 episodes of this or whatever, I'm learning that Lady Kasuga is a real person. So who knows? But like, I agree it's dumb, but maybe it just happened.
Right. It's
Yeah.
one of those. Yeah, I
If
get
it
what you're
did
saying.
happen, it makes sense. But if it didn't, and like they just included that, then that's kind of stupid.
I also agree with that. That yeah, it almost has to have happened now for it to be not really dumb. Which I think we're all in agreement of. So perfect. I guess so my favorite character, I really liked the third Shogun. I thought, like Jay said, really really cool character, and I um kind of sad that she just up and dies suddenly. I guess maybe there's like truth to it, but there isn't because this is all an alternate history, right? So like we can't say for
I'm
sure.
guessing giving birth to children was very dangerous back then. Still
Oh, it
is, but
was.
even more
It
dangerous.
Like a 20% morality or something.
Yeah.
uh
Her IRL equivalent died when he was 46.
so she
But
died
yeah,
younger.
she had it shown that it was her dad's death. That's why I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is that what they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
But she died when she was 20.
Because they couldn't show a female name in the Tokugawa lineage because that would break the line. That's like the
Okay.
whole.
That's actually pretty cool then how they make that math work out.
That's
or
why
whatever.
she doesn't have a name. They just call her my liege the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just kind of like, oh, that was a little anticlimactic to just have her die. Not out of nowhere, but kind of out of nowhere, right? Like I guess she had already fulfilled her purpose in the story at that point. Um they had established, but that's why I don't know. Maybe I just liked her enough that I was annoyed that she died. Johnny, why don't you go next? Who's your favorite character or characters?
Do you almost want to say what's his name? The guy that got paralyzed? Just because he was like
Oh,
I
not
feel like he's like the most unfortunate character in this show to like ever exist. Man got kidnapped against his will and then got paralyzed and then got like smallpox essentially, and it's just like most unlucky person ever. I think I'm gonna go with the main character just because he's like he goes through some shit in this. Like
does. A lot of them do.
It's like, I know this is a drama, but like every single time you think his life's gonna go like finally get better, it's just like, nah, fuck you. Like every single time something like it just gets worse and worse, and then it's just like this man just cannot catch a break. But
No, yeah, he's like,
he sucks through it. Yeah.
thanks for visiting me. The mother of my child hasn't visited me since I was paralyzed. Also, since I was paralyzed 3 years ago, you're the only person who's talked to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die now.
I was talking about Artie Koto being unfortunate, but that guy's also pretty unfortunate.
Apparently, it only gets more tragic for people. Like Arikoto has it bad, but he has it pretty good compared to other people later on in the story.
Well, he's still alive, so
He's alive. Exactly. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that
exactly.
too. He's alive and not paralyzed, right? Like,
yeah.
like in that moment at least, right? Or whatever. All right. Kat, go ahead. Who's
Yeah.
your favorite character?
My favorite character is honestly the third Shogun because of her development. Just going from being like basically being compared to a wild horse, literally compared to a wild horse. I think it was the like near to the beginning of the show to becoming much more mature uh and motherly as the show goes along, but still having this iron grip on all these dudes' balls. Like it's just really fun to see her basically be this hard ass and this strategic mastermind. Like be a strategic mastermind that men still sometimes get. Uh Men sometimes still get like the credit for, as we see, like I think it was like episode 7 or episode 6, somewhere around there, and then having her step up to do what she was doing, and then realizing, oh shit, you did it. Like that was really fun for me. Like it's fun to see a tough woman go from in the Drex to being like royalty that people don't fuck with. I found that really nice.
Yeah, my favorite character was also Ibitsu. The scene that stuck out to me in particular is when she had like her first child that was like alive, and kind of seeing how she portrayed herself. Like everyone around her viewed her a little differently. Like she had a different step in her pep, or different pep in her step. That's the word. Um, and people kind of like all realized that, and kind of like I think like took her respect to another level, and just seeing that was like so cool. Just throughout the entire story, just such a tragic character, honestly, that she was doing all of this when she really wished that, like, if Arikato could produce children, she could just stayed with him the whole time. As long as they were producing children, it didn't matter. And the fact that he's like probably sterile, I'm guessing, it's like they had to go through all of this things just to create children, and just tear their like relationship kind of apart. Even towards the end, you kind of saw Arikoto just like not being able to withstand it anymore. And it was so tragic, but it was so good with her in particular. She was by far my favorite character.
Yeah, she was fine. She
That's
sort of like
sexist.
lost. No, my favorite character is the Eighth Shogun. So it's not sexist.
All right,
I
cool.
just she was just like a woman of the people. She was like, all like fuck, the 1%. I'm gonna give all my hot men away to the
She went out and
proletariat.
she went out and cut down random people's hair.
That was that her, or was that
Yeah,
the third
the
one?
third shogunate.
Yeah,
she,
so I'm talking about the Eighth Shogunate.
oh, you're talking about the 8th one. Okay.
Yeah, the third one was not. She was like, yeah, we're not doing this to help the peasants. We're doing this so that they
That
don't
was so
revolt.
cool.
Yeah.
That was so
The
cool.
8th one was also
I thought you would
running around
respect
squeaking
that.
Nah, she's a fucking cop, and all of you like her. So
I
think
do.
about that.
I love her.
The 8th one went sneaking out, like hooking up with random dudes.
Yeah, that's fucking based. She was like, I'm only gonna fuck the ugly dudes.
Yeah. Oh, you're 35. Let's have sex.
Relatable. Well, Miles, relatable.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying there's a reason I might like someone who's exclusively fucking ugly dudes, but see if we can do the math.
I thought she was gonna fuck the old man at the end of the
dude, I did too. I thought she was gonna fuck him. How awesome would that have been?
That would have been excellent.
Maybe
It's
it
like-
ends with like the books just on the ground and they're fucking. Like
The
that's the
shipman
last
trench.
the last scene. But she was my favorite. I just sort of like liked that story more. It was like not as much of a bummer as everything that happened to everyone else in the past. We had like the movie had just sort of like happy endings all around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pro that. I'm pro happy ending. Meanwhile, the other one was like, here's we've all been raped, every character, and then it just explained that.
Here's
And it
this
was
tragic life. Here's this tragic life that ended the other person's tragic life. Oh, this person, they're doing well right now. Bam, they're paralyzed. Oh, and then
Yeah.
they died from the fucking disease
Yeah.
that's killing
Good.
this entire country. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a famine going on, by the way. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, look at these farmers, by the way. Oh, this woman who's doing a really good job all the way from being a tiny little kid to becoming an adult woman who's being like the mother and the head of the family. Oh yeah, nope, surprise. She dies before having kids and she hates that she didn't get to have kids, by the way. Like fuck, every story ended just so sad. It sucked
Yeah.
to watch.
History
Like,
sucks.
it does. It's cool though.
魚
But yeah, let's wrap up here. I don't know. I kind of touched on it. I guess the only other one I want to talk about was like I thought it was cool how they showed the outside world at least a little bit. I think. Well, one complaint I saw about the series was that it was like, oh, it's only about the inner chambers, right? It's like, well, no shit. That's what it's
The title of the story.
That's why it's called Ooku, the inner chambers. But I like how they actually didn't just stay in the inner chambers and they showed what peasant life is like. The fact that they brought up the red light district existing and like what it was and everything else, that was pretty cool. And again, I just brought her up with that poor girl and like her farm family or whatever on the outskirts and seeing like how they changed their life and adjusted to the red pox pandemic in the same way that Uku had to change their structures and their processes. I thought that that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, let's do our final thoughts and scores. Let's collect our thoughts and move on. So Miles, what have you got for a final score?
Yeah. So I enjoyed this show. I thought it was good. It was a little boring at times, I thought, and then I thought a little slideshowy, but like plot slideshowy, not like visual slideshowy. The visuals weren't great, but frankly, I don't really care that much. It's like a political drama. It doesn't need to do that. I did like all the characters. I thought the character work was good and stuff. I think I'm going to be thinking about the show for a while to like formulate it. So if one day you go to my Mal and it's higher than the score I'm about to give you, fuck you. I don't care. Call me out on it. Do it. You won't.
Well, I will do it.
Okay. But for the moment, I'm going to say it's a 7, and I will continue to think about it. I think there's a lot to digest about it, and I think part of the reason is I feel uncomfortable having just watched it, but part of that is because of how much of a bummer it is at times, and maybe I just am not into that right now, but I will be after thinking about it, if that makes sense. But 7 for me currently.
Makes sense. Yeah, I understand and relate to a lot of the stuff you said. So, Kat, what about you?
I had so much fun with this show. Now fun in a sad, depressing way, but not fun in a not fun in a oh somebody just got sexually assaulted. Yeah, no, that was not fun for me. But it was definitely a fun show to watch everything going down and all the character development going all around and seeing all the people like having to grovel to different people and having these things like flipped immediately or maybe not immediately but in an episode or so like and that was really, really fun. So one of the things I do want to point out, there is one voice actor that completely confused me. Um, and that was the narrator's voice actor. The narrator's voice actor sounded just like the voice actor from Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition that does Varric Tethris. And I was thrown aback. Now I watched the dub. That's the reason why. But like it was just I was like, yo, is he here? Are you serious? Like I was so excited. It's not that person, but they both have the last name Bloom.
I was about to
Um,
say, is it not Steve Bloom? It sounded just like Steve Bloom.
yeah, it's not Steve Bloom. The person's last name is damn, I clicked out of the website. But yeah, their both last name is Bloom. Just one is spelled Bloom, and one of them is spelled Blum. But like they have very similar voices. It's very very cool.
It's Steve Bloom.
Um,
Pretty sure.
yeah,
No.
but
It,
yeah,
it's the same guy. I'm pretty sure.
it's the same guy
It is. Yeah, he's the guy who did Bebop, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Steve Bloom. That's why.
for
That's why you
Dragon
recognized
Age
it.
2 and Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
shit. Oh cool.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we
So
could find that out.
He's
for
only the
you.
most iconic American voice
Yeah, that's what I was
actor.
gonna say. Like, I thought I
why.
recognized his voice, right? Like, he is the voice that pretty much everyone recognizes.
Oh,
But yeah, sorry.
yeah.
So continue, Kat. Like, final thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other than that, it was like one of my. This show was definitely one show that like it was a hell of a ride through the whole thing. But I really enjoyed it. Now of course there's also the whole thing that we didn't really get into the Drex with the graphics being a little bit spotty at times, but that only took out a little bit of enjoyment. But the rest of the enjoyment was just with the writing and the character development and all that. So overall thoughts, I think this is a strong 8. I wanted to give it a 9, but like, it's there are a few things in here like there's not enough happy moments for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So even though it's very very good, the happy moments pretty much bring it down to a high 8.
there you
But
go.
yeah, I really enjoyed the show.
All right, sweet. Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, so I don't want to say also I don't know who else watched the sub, but I did, and I didn't realize this until afterwards. But the voice acting lineup for this show is absolutely insane. So just like we have the voice actor for Gilgamesh from Fate. We have obviously Miyano Mamoru, Pete's favorite voice actor for the main
The
character,
goat.
absolute legend. We have Gojo's voice actor as well, and then we also have Lelouch from Code Geass, and also Aaron Yeager. So we have and there's a bunch of other characters obviously that like these characters that these voice actors are acting. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but yeah, there's a ton of very good voice actors in the show, and I thought that was a really strong part of the show. But again, it's like I feel like the way that the show was presented could have been better. Because like the disconnect from the past and the future, that could have been done a little bit better. Parts of the show were a bit boring. It's a lot of dialogue, and there's some points where the drama kind of gets like too much. Where it's just like, it's just like to the point where it's like it is comically like bad like luck that these characters have, that like every single thing that could go wrong for them goes wrong. Well, I still thought like the show was entertaining for the most part. Episode 1 I've really enjoyed for what it was. I just wish it connected a bit more to the rest of the series, so I'm gonna give the show a 7.
7. Alrighty. Jay, what about you?
It is also a 7 for me. I got most of my critique out of the way. I just wish that I think they should have extended it like 2 or 3 episodes, honestly.
Right. Yeah, giving us a little more, right? Like instead of teasing. It felt like very similar to me. I don't know if you guys like you and Johnny were around for this, but when we did what's that show with the gems called? Beyond the not Beyond the Boundary.
Land of the Illustrious.
Land of the Lustrous, thank you. Sorry, same like flowing title. But yeah, Land of the Lustrous, it felt like it was really good, but also it just left it's like why did it leave off here? Where's the rest of the story? What like don't know, fuck you, don't tell me to go read the manga. I'm not gonna do that. Like that's what it felt like to me in this one at the very
So
end, which I
pretty.
hope we get more. What?
It was so pretty though.
It was very pretty, a lot prettier than, than this show was, but I don't think that that's detracting of this show either. But anyway, sorry, I chime in
You
there.
want to
But
just give
Pete,
just say your rating then?
well, no, I had more stuff to say, so Pete, go ahead.
Okay. I absolutely adored this show. I at no point was I ever bored. I thought the writing was incredible. I thought the dialogue was fantastic. I love how they kind of the characters questioned things in the story and then answered them. Kind of like Land of the Illustrious, where the biggest thing for me with that show was it left off on a point where there was a lot of questions to be answered. And this, I didn't get that at all. Everything that I wanted answered was answered. I thought the character work was fantastic. It was tragic. It was romantic. At parts, it was funny, dramatic, everything like that. This was just everything I wanted in a story and more. I'm giving this a 10. I fucking love this story.
Wow.
Yep, I fucking loved it. I thought it was incredible. It's probably like
What is that? You're like,
it's like the second or third best show I've seen this year. I there's like not like a negative thing I could think of that would like detract it points from it for me.
Yeah, and to be more clear too, like Land of the Lustrous definitely leaves a lot more questions unanswered than this show does.
This
I think
isn't.
that
Yeah.
my point was more a lot. It's like in that comparison was more in the it forces you. It doesn't wrap up the story in any way really. It just sets up for the rest of like, oh well, now what's gonna happen with this young shogunate? Like what's gonna happen next? And man, you really want to know what else happens after episode 1, don't you? And you don't get to yet. You again, in my case, I really wanted to see more of the eighth shogunate. Right, I wanted to see more of what was going on with her. So that's how we ended up with less, in that scenario or in that comparison in my head. I overall enjoyed it. I think the show was stuck between a 7 and an 8 for me, mainly because of those complaints and the things that we've talked about so far. I think I'm gonna go with the 7. Uh, like like everyone, and I pretty much agree with everyone else's negative sentiments towards. Uh, I will say, like the animation, we didn't really talk about it. We talked about it before we recorded. There were multiple moments where it just took me out of the moment, where I was just like, "This CG is horrible," or "This random look, this scene looks like shit," and to the point, beyond the point of being like, "Oh, well, I didn't expect this to be your name or something," but I like, why is this character moving up and down instead? When they're yeah, just very weird moments that stand out if you're paying attention, which I was. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, again, I'm good with my 7. I think it could go up to an 8, similar to Miles. I'm like hovering right in the middle there. But yeah, let's average out those scores real quick. It comes out to a 7.66 overall from us on the cast. The show averages on Mal a 7.51, so we're pretty close to everybody else in terms of our feelings on this show so far. But yeah, I guess that wraps up our Oku discussion. So next week, or we this past session, we nominated shows that were for our good friend Kat,
Johnny.
Johnny. Thank
all right,
you.
guess I'm leaving. See ya.
Yeah, bye, Johnny. No, we nominated shows for our good friend Johnny. We only ended up with 4 of them because it was only 4 of us this last episode. But what were the final results of those nominations?
Yes. In last place we have Erased. Tied for second we have the 2 Oreisukes, and in first we have Hal's Moving Castle.
It's like 4 weeks in a row I've won.
I don't need to watch the Little Sister show again. Let's
This
go.
one was bait.
It is 2 weeks in a row that you've
Ghibli
won,
is
Pete,
bait.
because
All right, I won like
Megalobox
4 or
Number
5 or
2
something.
was Jay.
Yeah.
You've won 3 of 4.
There we go.
We're really trying to take my shine.
This one really was
How
kind
close
of
was
bait though. It was relatively close, but it's also only
Actually?
4 thing. Well, it's only 4 things you can vote for, so the votes are going to naturally.
I
be
say that
very
as
close.
somebody who this is my favorite Ghibli movie. That shit's incredibly bait.
How much did Howl's Moving Castle win by?
7 points.
Okay.
It crushed.
Yeah.
Okay, so this isn't one of those cases where like I could have like accidentally sabotaged myself for like the 8th time.
No.
Okay.
There was a period of time where the sister show like got like the first 4 first place votes, like just in fucking quick succession.
Yeah.
Um,
That was rough. That was scary times for those of us that did not want to watch My Sister, My Writer, or
Shit's
no, what is
rigged.
it?
Shit's rigged.
Yeah.
yeah, it's my
Jokes on
sister.
you guys.
My writer.
I'm nominating it for this week too.
Yeah.
Oh, was it
For
Was
Cat.
it
No,
Jay
it's
in
not.
it is 4 alts or something?
You never know if it's rigged or not because it's only Miles that
I would
no,
never. The fact that Pete's ever fucking won means it's not rigged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's there you go. But yeah, so now it's time to nominate for Cat Week. So why don't we start listing our shows that we're nominating for Cat Week? And I think we did make the executive decision that the person whose week it is does not nominate a show after
No.
accidentally letting Pete do it that one time. So which was stupid of us.
And it
But
won.
I'm glad
after
you watched it. Yeah.
after some voter manipulation.
Yes, but yeah. So, Kat,
Fake
you will not be
news.
nominated. Kat, you are more than welcome to vote last minute, like always, but you are not nominating a show. Miles, what are you nominating for
Fine
Cat
with
Week?
me. I didn't come with a show anyway, so fuck yeah.
4 steps
We
ahead,
know.
always.
We know.
We knew. That's why they said it.
We
Yeah.
made
so
this
Hey.
rule just for you, Kat.
It's whenever I don't have a show ready, I'm like, just pitch it to Kat, and then Kat has a panic attack.
Yeah.
So
What show are we
You
not?
not
Are
have
you
a show,
nominating for?
Miles?
I'm sick, and I have a pun that I'm trying to make
All
my
right.
head
All
work.
right. I'll give you some time then. Johnny, what are you nominating
No,
for?
wait,
Cat
no, because there's only
Oh.
one. Like, it's non-Baka 2. I'm
I
nominating
was gonna
non-Baka.
nominate Nobaka too.
Week?
We were all, let's be honest, we were
Yes!
all faking it. I had it as my backup.
It's 2 guns, non-Baka. 2. Fuck, I'm sick. Okay. Anyways, the point being, non-Baka season 2.
Non-Baka
Gotcha.
season 2. Wow. Okay.
I think we were all faking it, let's be honest. Like,
Yeah, it was all the
That's
backup.
fair. It's absolutely fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, Johnny, that was your backup, right? So you do have another show.
yes, I was obviously not going to come here with non-Baka Season 2 as my only nomination.
So what is your nomination then?
My nomination, I was surprised that this isn't on Cat's list unless he hasn't updated his map, and then it's his fault, not mine. I'm going to be nominating Call of the Night.
Ooh, spicy. I like
I
that
feel
one.
like that's a show that he's going to like.
I like that nomination for him.
Bunch of hot girls. I don't think there's a cat in it, but maybe there is, so who knows?
Already a 4.
Why?
Because no cat is what he's
No
saying.
cat.
Oh,
It's cat
yeah.
week.
Yeah, no. Jay, what have you got now that, or do you need a minute because non-Baka 2 is taken?
I'm going to nominate Space Dandy.
Ooh, nice.
That has a cat
Huh?
in it.
There you go. All right, Pete, what about you?
I'm gonna nominate a show that I know is near and dear to Kat's heart, and it has a cat in it. It even has a
Non-Baka
cat
season 3.
in the title. I'm nominating My Roommate is a Cat.
Oh,
Yes!
that show's. I like that
Yes!
show. That show was
Fucking
fun.
love that show.
I don't know how we'd talk about it for like an hour, but you know what? Well, we'd
We'll
find
figure
a
it
way.
out.
We
Just
always do.
meow for an hour.
Yeah, there you go. All right. And last but not least, I will nominate Trigun Stampede because I see it on his plan to watch, and I think that I would enjoy it because it's the requel of specifically the requel or whatever. Prequel? What is it?
It's a
I don't know.
prequel.
It's
It is a prequel. It is a
Alright.
prequel / soft reboot of the series.
There you go. All right, that's what I am nominating for Cat. So,
Kind of a spoiler, honestly, but it's not a
It's
big deal.
everyone knows it
Well,
by now.
Yeah, exactly.
I just say it's kind of hard not to know, right?
Right.
So yeah, wait, is it done airing?
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
God.
there's a
'cause-
second season announced. Or
Yep, there is.
basically, yeah.
Right, but like the 12 episode. I don't know. I was
Yeah, it
just
aired
looking at
in
the Mal.
December.
That's what I thought. I just see the Mal only lists like episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for some reason as episode videos. So I was like, wait, like that's weird. Yeah, it's on Crunchyroll. I know that. Yeah, why did I question myself? I'm always right. But yeah. So speaking of which, we spun the wheel for recording, and out of the final 3 people that need to have their week, it is going to be actually me 2 weeks from now. So we'll be nominating Pat shows 2 weeks from now. So yeah, figure we get that out there, and I think that wraps up Watch Club for the week. So Pete, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, if you have made this far and you want to support us, best way to do so, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on whatever platform you are watching or listening to us on. Next week, don't know what I'm doing. I'll figure it out. Get ready for more anime content next Monday. Otherwise, check out the new Anime Jeopardy. That was super fun. But if you're here for Watch Club in 2 weeks, we will see you for Howl's Moving Castle. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Peace.